don't know about everybody else, but I get onto something, I seem to get, oh, let's do it, keep doing it. So I've switched my fuel lines to AN fitting braided stainless steel hoses. I did my transmission lines 8 years ago when I built this truck, my transmission cooler lines for the 4L80E. But I did not, the fuel lines I've done in PTFE core. I'm not sure I knew about that, or maybe I couldn't afford them. I don't know. I didn't get PTFE when I did the transmission 8 years ago. So I was crawling underneath it to look at the transmission lines. And I found something that's like, oh, my transmission mount was unbolted from the transmission. I don't know how long it's been that way. We drove it 150 miles yesterday, and there was a little harmonic between 66 to 68 to 72, but it's been there for a while. And it took a lot of effort to move the transmission back over, because it was moved sideways almost an inch from where the bolt holes were, and both bolts were gone. I'm gonna go. I just did a test drive. I just did a 20-mile test drive, and I'm gonna take the camera with my car to look at it, just to see, make sure they're still in there. I think it happened when I was up in the mountains in Colorado 2.5 years ago. We were outside of town of Creed doing something called the Bachelor Loop, which isn't that much off-road. It was very steep hills for a flatlander like me from Central Texas, steep hills. And I wanted to go to low range, and I couldn't get out of two-wheel drive. It would not shift. I put it in neutral, I tried backing up, everything. I could not get it into low range. So I was like, okay, unless we got to do something off-road, I'm okay. And we climbed that steep ascent, and it was basically a dirt road on the side of a mountain. Wasn't that bad. One didn't need four-wheel drive. But coming back down, we stopped in an old mine, and I just happened to try it, and it popped right into gear. It popped right into 4 low and 4-wheel high. Okay. I didn't think anything of it. But I had that harmonic, and the truck just didn't feel right. I didn't even thought about transmission mount to the cross member. Here we are 2.5 years and, I don't know, 10,000 miles later. I crawled in to look at the transmission cooler lines, and there's no bolts in the transmission line, and the transmission's over. So I took it for a test drive. It drives totally different. The thing wants to go faster. I've been having to kind of push it to go somewhere. It just hasn't been driving right, and I couldn't figure out why. It just didn't feel right. Numbers were right. My mileage didn't change. It still goes fast as I want to around here. It didn't feel right, so I didn't want to drive it. Now, the thing feels like a speed machine. The only thing different is I put 2 bolts in the transmission and lined it up square. No more harmonic from the drive shaft and the transmission bouncing. Good example is back in 21, I hauled 4 people with me and led a convoy of 3 or 4 vehicles, 800, 600 some odd miles away to Guadalupe National Park to climb Guadalupe Peak. And the speed limit on I-10 is 80 miles an hour. I set the cruise at 82, and we just ate all day long climbing. I'm at 428 feet, I think, right here. I think the base of the mountain is at 6,000 or 5,000. It's a lot of climbing. And you get around Fort Stockton, you're climbing, then you lose it all. Then you got to climb it again to Van Horn up to the pass. Anyway, the thing did great. No weird harmonics. It just went. I had troubles with my EGTs because I've since added the water methanol injection, which I've talked about in other videos. That's no longer a trouble. But the truck just hasn't felt like it wants to go. Let me show you what we got. If I can do this without turning anything off. Yes, it's dirty down here because my power steering pump or something is leaking. I have not found it. So there's one of the brand new bolts. And there's the other one. That front drive shaft was basically next to the cross member. It was sitting right here. This drive shaft was up against the cross member. So the whole transmission was shifted to the driver's side this way. In fact, I could see the bolt, the hole, the mount, which is, the hole's right here with the bolt. The hole was on this end of the mount, so the transmission was way over. My drive shaft angle looks better now. It looks straight. It was not straight before. Anyway, if you got a weird harmonic, or the thing just doesn't want to feel like it goes, or what should have been a clue to me, if it won't shift into four-wheel high or low, I thought it's because I was sitting kind of torsionally twisted where I was. I think it's because the transmission was moved over and the linkage was jammed. I thought it was between the floor and the frame. I should have got out and looked then. Probably would have found the bolts. Anyway, my two-wheel drive Suburban I had way back when, my Bomber diesel, 3/4 ton Air Force surplus, it kept losing these bolts. I ended up putting Loctite on them and they'd still go bad. Those two, or the two in here, they still loosen up. This is an energy suspension solid mount, which works really good. Anyway, teachable moment for, you got a weird vibration, the truck just doesn't feel right. Check the simple stuff.